Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Michaela Peters. It would not be a video of mine without a long, irrelevant interlude, so we're gonna start with that. I just got back from the chiropractor because I didn't talk about this yesterday, but I really messed up my back. Speaking of which, I need to ice it. Hold on. Yeah, I don't have any real ice packs, so I iced with frozen vegetables. But yeah, somehow I messed up my back. Probably running too much, lifting the 30-pound baby, carrying her on like one hip and not the other, and yeah, now I have a problem and I had to go to the chiropractor. While I don't have insurance, thank God my chiropractor is like a stellar dude and just charged me a pretty cheap amount because I don't have insurance. Like, I really, like, I was explaining this today to one of my relatives. Like, this guy just has such good energy. He is actually like, he was kind of the final straw with me deciding to give birth in Finland, where he was like, oh, if I were you, I would give birth in Finland. And I'm like, if this guy is saying I should give birth in Finland, then that's what I'm doing. Yeah, but I think he helped. It's still like kind of messed up, but I think it did help. And then I'll go in again on Monday. But I was supposed to be in the car today, and then I just decided to bail. I really hate canceling plans because I'm sick. I had gotten food poisoning in Finland and had to cancel a plan with a friend that I was trying to set up like a couple times, and that sucked. But anyway, I'm glad we're here now. I'm very lucky that my dad took the baby for today so I can work on my startup again and mostly ice my back and not pick her up because she cries all the time when we're at home. She hates being at home as much as I do unless I'm working. So anyway, that's all cool. But I was reading these comments yesterday on my videos and I got this one and I decided I'm actually going to address it. And I don't usually do shout outs to comments, but I'm going to do it here. Now, because I'm partially blind, we're going to put the glasses back on. Also, in case anybody's wondering why there are, like, weird gaps here, it's because I need to hang more stuff on the wall, and, like, I haven't had the creative bandwidth to do that yet. But anyway, shout out to this guy, whatever this username is, John Don Ron. Interesting, okay. And because, I'm like, why are these men watching my channel? I'm also trying to figure out if this guy is studying in a different country, are you actually in the demographic of people above the age of 35? Like, are you doing the European thing, which is like you just study forever? This is why I'm a European at heart. Or like, are you actually still in the above the age of 35 male demographic? Anyway, I'm pretty sure this guy is a guy, but I'm wondering if he's in the age demographic just because the studying comment is throwing me off. But anyway, again, shout out to this comment, and I'm gonna like throw it over here and read it. And it says, I started watching your channel because I found it fascinating to see an American experiencing life in Finland. Thanks, that is probably the draw of my channel. It's interesting to watch you navigate a different culture, notice the small differences in everyday life, and share your perspective on adapting to such a different way of living. I also study in a country, and if I recall correctly, because I kind of remember this guy's comments before, it was either like the Netherlands or Germany. I think it might be the Netherlands, but I don't remember where this guy is from originally, so yeah. But this is one of my top commenters, but not as much as like my top 3, but this guy is in here, so shout out to you, John Donron. Anyway, so he said, I am studying in a different country than the one I grew up in, so I can relate to some of your experiences while others are completely different, which makes your perspective even more interesting to hear. Now this part, I'm not gonna lie, it made me laugh a little bit. I stayed because you're genuinely funny. Look, this is one of the most embarrassing things to admit, but like sometimes I watch my videos back and like I start laughing at myself. So like I agree. Even though my sense of humor is so stupid, your sense of humor, including the moments where your autism shines through, haha, is refreshing, and I also enjoy hearing a woman's perspective on topics that don't often get discussed from that point of view. So this is actually one of the reasons why I love having male friends. And actually, initially when I was pregnant, I really wanted a boy because of diversity of thought. I knew I was getting a girl, though, because in the Peters family, everybody gets a girl first and then a boy. So probably no matter who I would have a second baby with, it would be a boy if I had that. But right now, I'm not really worried about that. But anyway, I was talking to a friend yesterday about, like, kind of, like, hating and being afraid of men. Sorry, but yeah, and, I didn't really feel that way until the experience with being left while I was pregnant, but for real, So, and a lot of the men in my family are like great. I sincerely think the men in my family are like better than the women in my family. Like, even the way the men in my family are with the baby is sometimes better than the way the women are with the baby. No offense to any of my relatives who are watching this, but like, it is sincerely how I feel. I mean, whatever, they're all pretty good, but some of them are not very maternal and they kind of know it, but we're not going to point fingers. Okay, anyway, so as I was saying, this one friend, she had like not a great father, like, yeah, she doesn't really talk to her dad anymore. And I was like, I get what you mean, because her whole thing is like, men only want one thing. Yes, we all think that. I'm not going to lie about that. But I've had like really good experiences with having like some genuinely really good guy friends in Finland. And I think if I did not have those experiences, I would continue feeling this way. And in the US, like, it's really hard to make guy friends who you don't think are like subconsciously out for that. But like in Finland, I have guy friends who have like very long-term girlfriends. Why are they friends with me? I don't know. They probably also think I'm funny, or like one of my friends I think is autistic, even though he likes to deny that, but that's fine. Shout out to you. You know who you are. I also feel like he secretly watches my channel and just doesn't tell me. I'm waiting to see if that's true, but obviously there's no way to know. Yeah, like that guy's been with his girlfriend for like, I don't even know, 5 years at this point. Other guy's been with his girlfriend for more than 10 years. They may as well be married. They would be if they were in the US because of common law marriage, duh. But no, but these guys, like, they're just like, they're like my like brother or something. Like, I don't even know, like, I'm just not even worried about it, like, because they have a girlfriend and they're like loyal to the girlfriend. So I mean, don't get me wrong. I've had other guy friends who I think are like, do they actually like me? And they're just trying to play the long game. But yeah, anyway. So yes, I get it from the perspective of like, it is really interesting to hear a woman's perspective, especially on topics that may be taboo or not getting discussed. And it's like, I still have to be very filtered on this channel despite what people think, because like safety reasons and like, I don't fully know who's watching this. So, like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff. It's like, I still feel like I'm very high level, even though, like, as my one friend my subscriber who became my friend said, he was like, you open up about a lot of pretty vulnerable stuff, which is, like, what's appealing. So, yes, it goes back to the whole, like, because I'm genuine thing. I remember when I was going to therapy when I was 15 years old, and I asked my therapist, why do people like me? And she's like, because you're genuine. And I was like, thanks. And it's probably still true today. The same friend, actually, who I was talking about, like, I'm just like, yeah, I just, like, hit people up and be like, do you want to hang out? And he's like, and does anybody ever say no? I'm like, not usually. And he's like, that just speaks to your likability. And I'm like, okay, thanks, maybe. Gotta put the glasses back on for this one. Okay, so it says, one video I'd love to see is about relationships. Looking back, what have you learned about choosing the right partner? What qualities matter most now that you might not have valued before? I remember you once saying there's often a difference between what people say and how they act. 100%. 1,000%. And I'd love to hear any other lessons you've learned and what advice you'd give your younger self. Okay, this is a like super loaded question, but this is a good question. Like, it's kind of rare that I get a question from the audience that I feel like is really like something that there's a lot to discuss with this. So, what advice would I give my younger self? I'm not gonna lie, I get kind of frustrated, not with this particular comment, but okay, do you ever talk to older people who are like, in your mind you're still young, but your like exterior is aging? Granted, you have more cumulative years of life experience, but there is a part of me that thinks that the younger version of myself was like more responsible and mature than like the older version of myself. And I think the reason I might say that is because I do feel like I had kind of like a quarter life crisis around the age of 26 for some reason. I don't want to say for some reason. I think I was getting to a point where I was like, okay, I already want to be married and know who I'm having my child with. I used to really be like, why did I end up in Finland? And I used to literally, because the beginning of Finland was hard. And I don't think I talk about this like a lot, but like I was very lonely. I used to like go to the lake and cry by myself because I was lonely. And it's like a feeling I can't even ever imagine having ever again in my life. It was also like COVID and I was in a new country and the winters are bad. And like I've already adapted to all that, but it was a very rough adaptation, assimilation, whatever. So anyway, I used to be like, yo, God, why did you bring me to Finland to suffer? And honestly, now I'm like, was I brought to Finland to get my baby? Which makes no sense, but like, I do sometimes wonder that. pretty ridiculous. I was like, circle of life, you know, my baby just all the way is a Finnish baby, even though she's American and Russian, but whatever. Okay, so yeah, what advice would I give my younger self? Honestly, I feel like my younger self should be giving my older self advice. So, like, I'm kind of exempt from this question. Like, I feel like people around age 15, this was actually a really common problem I had. And I'm going to talk about this on here because it is something that really bothers me. And I've never talked about it on here, but now that I'm getting older, it's something I'm remembering because I kind of forgot about it. You know, growing up in like a religious community and stuff, like I don't really quite get it. Like people really thought I was like up to no good at age 15. I'll tell you what I was up to at age 15, being a perfectionist. I wanted to have like the best cross country track and swimming times, and I thought that this is so ridiculous to even explain this. And this is super irrelevant from this, but whatever. I started with like running like a 25-minute 5K, and then it dropped down to a 23-minute 5K by the next year. So I was like, then I should drop down to 21 and then 19, and by the time I'm a senior, I should be running a 19-minute 5K. Then I learned that genetics, and that's not how that works. So, no. I also like cried my last track meet, like where I ran the 400 and I didn't like make a personal record. I remember like I actually went alone behind like a little shed somewhere by the track and cried. Like, it was so stupid. And then, you know, like obsessing over SAT scores and AP scores and how much scholarship money I was gonna get. And like, this was like all I cared about, okay? And it's like the story I always tell is like, you know, I was running cross country and this guy who I ran cross country with, like, there's some guy playing baseball and it's like, oh, who's that girl who ran by? And he's like, don't even like bother. Like, she's not gonna talk to you. And I'm like, yeah, because I did not talk to guys in high school. Yeah, because they were all creepy. And I just, like, you know, I'm happy now. I don't really get, like, you know, people being as creepy, probably because I'm older. But, like, also I tend to like spending time in countries where people don't do that. And that happens more in the US than in Finland, by the way. Also does not barely even happen in Kyrgyzstan at all. So, the US, yeah. That's probably why I have such strong opinions about living in certain areas, because if you're in certain areas, it's going to happen a lot more. I remember where I grew up, again, in the ghetto, and, like, people just used to walk up to my mom with, like, me and my brother in the car and be like, excuse me, miss, you're so beautiful, and then she'd be like, thanks. I mean, she was always nice about it, but if it was me, I'd be like, I've got 2 kids, what the heck are you doing? Okay, anyway. So my point is, I don't know if people, like, thought I was, like, into guys or something. Okay, like, I am into guys. Okay, this is, like, yes, this is my orientation. But, like, what I mean is that, obviously, I have a child. Bad joke. But I just didn't care that much. I don't think I really, like, you know, again, had issues until like I went to Finland. You know, it's sort of like, I think if you already have existing mental health issues, Finland just kind of exacerbates those issues. It was also in Finland that I realized that like alcoholism probably runs in my family, because like, well, Finland has a lot of alcoholics, and then you kind of start comparing your own behavior to theirs and you're like, maybe this isn't good. And, you know, it's really only considered alcoholism when the alcohol is starting to cause problems in your life. And I felt like it was starting to cause problems in my life in terms of, like, it felt more difficult to emotionally regulate. Now I don't drink, like, at all. I, like, can't because I have a child and I'm breastfeeding and you're not supposed to drink. You can, but you have to time it and blah, blah, blah. It's, like, too much work. I'm not doing it. And, like, I'm not really ever in situations in the US where I'm, like, gonna drink anyway. And then you always have to drive a car, and it's expensive if you're gonna, you know, expensive and stupid and irresponsible if you're gonna get a DUI. Like, no, that's all bad. We're not doing that. So anyway, point is, the alcoholism thing, yeah, maybe that was a problem. But yeah, so what advice would my older self give my younger self? Like, never drink. I don't know. Or yeah, like, when you get older, don't drink. I don't know. But yeah, it was just weird because, like, people always thought I was up to no good, and I was literally just, like, up to overachieving. And is that no good? Not really. Like, I feel like in some ways I was, like, robbed of, like, a proper, like, teenage experience because I was so, like, perfectionistic. And it's still something I'm, like, working on getting away from. But when I start to, like, get bored with my environment and who I'm around, I get more perfectionistic again. That might be happening again right now because I'm, like, getting a little bit very obsessed with, like, my startup. But maybe that's fine. Who cares? Because right now I have the time for it. And the support, because my family's helping me with the baby. Shout out to them, honestly. I don't know what I'm going to do in Finland with that situation, but we'll see. So, yeah, the advice, it's like, honestly, it's just like, that's such a hard question to answer. I don't even know that I can, like, answer that question. Because, again, I just felt like, it's funny because my brother's girlfriend kind of, like, came in the middle of, like, me being dysfunctional, which was, I'm gonna say really, like, peak circa, like, ages 26 to 28. And she, like, doesn't understand that, like, most of my life I've been, like, pretty functional and, like, there aren't really many problems. It was just, like, yeah, Finland, like, the beginning really threw me off. And somehow, like, having a baby in Finland really kind of, like, helped restabilize me. Interesting. But I think a lot of the destabilization, to be honest, did come around, like, relationships and trying to figure out relationships. Like, I really hate to throw my family under the bus with this one, but the biggest thing that I realized in Finland was I didn't live with my family and I didn't have anybody, like, regularly criticizing me, putting expectations on me, blah, blah, blah. I'm a firstborn and I'm, like, so good at rising to the occasion. So I feel like I started subconsciously looking for my family. And what I mean is I was looking for people to, like, treat me that way. But the problem is when it's your family, they don't, like, actually have unconditional love for you. Well, is it really conditional if there are all these expectations? Not usually. But anyway, they don't really have, like, the same sort of natural love for you, let's say, instead of conditional or unconditional. So a lot of those relationships in the end ended up detonating, and I think that there was, like, an inherent, like, fear of abandonment with that kind of thing going on. Hashtag BPD. But anyway, whatever. I think that can happen to you anyway. I hope my child doesn't develop that because I leave her alone for the day. But she's with family. I don't know. Let's find out. She's now getting super clingy, and it's really hard, especially with this back problem. So, yeah. But yeah, I suppose some of the things I learned with that is, like, alright, so I have a lot of men here. Why do men like video games? Or, it's not just men. Why do people like video games? Because it's kind of like that sweet spot between something being challenging enough to be engaging and not being too hard to be, like, not worth, like, engaging in at all. So I think the problem with relationships sometimes is, your brain kind of rewards things that are challenging. And so if you think a relationship is challenging, it's like, ooh, if I can just get this relationship, like, it's like a ton of dopamine. And it's not, like, healthy. And yeah, it's kind of hard to understand that. So I just always, for most of my life, felt like, oh, I'm just not normal. And, like, I'm not going to be able to, like, get into a relationship because I'm just, like, not like most of these people. And, there's a lot of, like, other stuff. It's like you have, like, this whole, like, religious pretense to this, which was, like, I always thought, like, okay, this is the issue. No, that's not even necessarily the issue. Also, part of the issue is, like, probably autism, which, I mean, if there's something that's really hard for autistic people, it's definitely dating. That's why, like, dating another autistic person was definitely the easiest. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, so there's that, because it's, like, less games, honestly, because, like, you're just way more direct. Maybe that's, like, kind of why I like Russian culture, because there's a little bit more directness in it. Oh, I'm supposed to be, like, sitting with back support. Yes, this is the thing that I needed for that. Wow, and it was just right there. Okay, that was super convenient. Cool. I don't know. So, there we go. Wonderful. Okay, yeah, I don't know. And then I was like, maybe I have a personality disorder. Maybe that's why dating is hard for me. And, like, I'm not even really sure if that's true anymore, to be honest. I don't know. Or what were some other reasons? ADHD. Yeah, that can be, because then you get, like, too hyper-focused on the relationship at the beginning, and that's not healthy either. So, like, all these things, like, I didn't even really think about it in terms of healthy. I just thought about it in terms of, like, I'm socially impaired. Actually, the biggest thing I wanted for my child, I kind of wanted to, like, marry somebody who was a lot more socially adept than me, so my child would not suffer socially the same way, like, I did. But then I had a child with a fellow autist, so it might not work. But whatever. It's fine. Well, I try to socialize my baby, and also, even though I'm autistic, I'm still pretty good at socializing, and I have a lot of friends, so it will be fine. And people still like me, so who cares? I just had to go learn Russian and stuff and do a bunch of weird traveling around the world for that to happen, but it's totally fine. So, again, what have I actually learned? You can't make people like you, and you can't control people. And if somebody is already, like, trying to get rid of you or is wishy-washy, it's probably not worth your effort. And I know it's really hard because you have like, this desire to cling, especially to things that feel familiar. But sometimes the things that feel familiar are not really the things that are, again, healthy. So there's like some guy in New Jersey who has an Instagram account where he does like, what's it called? Like comedy, and one of them was talking about like if you get butterflies with somebody, it's probably like your nervous system like trying to tell you to run away. And I'm like, yeah, kind of. So it's like sometimes having that like uber special connection with somebody, it's kind of dangerous. Like it's not good. One friend had put it like usually relationships that burn bright at the beginning are more likely to like burn out, and I think that that's very true, and I think that's a huge problem. The way I think of it is like you're trying to run like a marathon while like at the same rate you would sprint a 400-meter race, and it's like that's just not going to work. So I think something I've learned is just to take things slower. Like if it's the right person, they're going to stick around anyway, and if it's the wrong person, if they're going to clear themselves out at some point anyway. And it's like, what is the right person, what is the wrong person? Like, look, we all hate to acknowledge this, but like we ourselves are half of the problem, okay? Like retrospectively, I know that there are things that I probably should have done, but like you live and you learn. I think that in the past there were definitely times I like rushed into things, and I think one of the, Mark Manson, the one who wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F word. I can't curse on here. Well, for a lot of reasons. But anyway, he has a blog, and there is a section of his blog that talked about how you shouldn't get married just because you want to get married and like check it off like it's a life goal. You should want to get married because like you found the right person. So it shouldn't like have a time thing to it. I will like be very honest in admitting this, and this is maybe not something I like talked about a lot on here, whatever. This is like all in the past now, so if he wants to come at me, go ahead. I was really trying to marry the child of my father by like a certain date because it was the date I needed to leave my house, and I like wanted to go live with him. And I was not super cool with the like not living together before being married situation. So yeah, that didn't happen, obviously, and I found my own place to live, so it's great. That problem has since been rectified, because I used to complain to him about that a lot. He was not thinking about that, because he was thinking about other things. That's good for him. Clearly not his child, but whatever. Throwing some shade, excuse me. Yes, back to topic. But, yeah, I mean, I think I learned a lot from that relationship, too. But I'm trying to think what. Like, I think again, it's like you don't really know a person. Like I was so in love with him, and then he's like, but you don't know me. And I'm like, I knew you enough to know I really like you, and then, I didn't really like what he did in the end. So like that's another thing that I've had to learn that's difficult is like you have all the credentialing, and then you have all of the like character stuff. And character stuff should be like almost as important as the credentialing. I know the credentialing is hard. Like for me, the hardest thing is like I'm super academic. I am like accomplished, blah, blah, blah. And, like, I kind of want somebody on my level. There's also this whole concept of hypergamy, and because I'm lazy, I'm just going to look up what that is and read the definition, because I don't feel like explaining it wrongly. It is the act or practice of dating or marrying someone with a higher socioeconomic status, wealth, or social standing, colloquially known as marrying up. While historically rooted in social mobility for women, the term is frequently used in modern dating to describe a subconscious preference to seek highly resourceful or successful partners. Yes. So you have to think about this as a woman, right? Like, I want to marry a man who's, like, superior to me, but, like, the problem is women are becoming so, like, talented themselves and so like successful and accomplished that like men are kind of doing like this. And somebody made a comment on that in my last video where they're like, yeah, like what is going on with this gender stuff in the US. Honestly, I still think there are a lot of women in the US who like don't work and just stay home and raise kids. So like because that like makes more sense. Our daycare is just way too expensive. But yeah, you want somebody who you're gonna like admire and respect. Respect is the key word. So one of the other things, like, I had been talking to a dude friend recently, and I was talking about like this time that I tried to like date a guy who wasn't really my type and it didn't work. And he's like, well, why would you do that? That's just stupid. And I was like, wait, he's right. And so like, what is my type? ew, why are we even going to talk about this? Because I don't want all of you people in the audience being like, oh, Mikaela is my soulmate, because you're probably not. But anyway, I did not love that at the beginning of this channel, and I really respect the fact that the people who have stuck around are people who realize that that's not really going to happen. So thank you for that. But yeah, so as I was saying, all right, I'm going to explain it this way. So, like, most of my life, I felt like I didn't belong, like, anywhere in my family, in my religious community, in my school, on the cross country team. I actually felt like I belonged. Like, I felt like I really could socialize there, because cross country is probably mostly autistic people. Track, nope. Swimming, barely. You know, those different teams. Like, I just, like, there was just something wrong with me, and I just could never figure out what it was until, like, last year, 2 years ago. Okay, cool. So when I finally got to NASA, I was like, wow, like, I really feel like I fit in here. Because honestly, NASA is probably a bunch of autistic people too. And the thing is, also, engineering and technical fields tend to have a lot of autistic people in them. Why? Because you don't really have to work with people when you're focusing on that stuff. So that's my theory. But I never really could understand, like, why do I like these technical people so much? And it's, like, probably the shared autism. And, like, I want to be a technical person too. I still want to become an engineer. We'll see if I can do that eventually. Hashtag life goals. But anyway, so I was getting along really well with people at NASA, and it was a really tough decision to resign from NASA to go study Russian in Kyrgyzstan, but that was ultimately what I did. And there were two examples of people who made me confident in that decision. One is, what the heck is this guy's name? The guy who does the XKCD comics. I already forget his name. Randolph Monroe, right? I'm pretty sure. Come on. I think it's Randall Monroe. I'm, like, almost positive. I have a couple of his books too. Yeah, it is Randall Monroe. Okay, cool. I remembered his name. But anyway, this guy, he was making so much money doing, like, XKCD and other stuff that he resigned from NASA, but he used to work for NASA. And then there was some guy who was, like, making origami, and he was about to retire from NASA, and then he retired just to be able to make origami. My point is, these people left NASA to do something they were more passionate about, and I realized for me that was studying Russian. So when I left NASA, and I went to go study Russian in Kyrgyzstan, I was in a program with 8 kids. I did not really fit in with them either. And it kind of sucked, because we were, like, stuck with each other. But I remember, you know, there were a couple times, I was thinking about making this last night. I'm like, man, this is going to be ranty. Sometimes we used to have the radio on in our house, and I was like, yeah, there were a couple things I really distinctly remember from listening to the radio at home. One of them was that the argument for why evolution does not exist is that humans have conscious capability. I wonder what it is, though. Oh, come on. I don't care about that. All right. Anyway, I'm sorry. Humans have conscious reasoning capabilities in terms of, yes, like a conscience. So what do I mean by that? They use the example of, like, during the Holocaust, if you're, like, hiding a bunch of people in a room and there's a baby crying, and then, like, the people are coming to, like, you know, come for you. Do you suffocate the baby and kill the baby, or do you let the baby cry and then you all get found out and then you all die? And, like, the idea that you're, like, going back and forth and trying to, like, reason on that is, like, showing some sort of, like, higher level conscious capabilities. Whatever. If I have any atheists here, they're probably gonna argue with me. That's fine. You can go ahead and do that. I don't really care. I've had enough of those atheist arguments while I was in La Pedranza, and I'm kind of over them. But anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. Whereas animals act more of instinct. That was the argument. But anyway, one of the other things, the side tangent, but we'll go to the next thing now. But one of the other things that I talked about was, like, people in the military, and probably people in Finland who are watching this are going to completely relate to this, because there's the mandatory compulsory military service, whatever, is that, like, you have the sense of camaraderie, and that's something that when people leave the military, they start to miss. And that was something I started to miss leaving NASA. You know, like, I really did miss, like, getting along with people I was around all the time. And then when I went to study at LUT, like, that was the second time I felt that way, because, again, I was with all engineers. So, like, I kind of just always wanted to be with an engineer or super technical person. Like, I found, like, the people I really liked or admired or had crushes on or whatever when I was studying for my undergrad were, like, the guys in my program who were, like, actually super good at coding. So I admire that because it's like I'm not that good at coding, and so it's like to me, I perceive this person in a hypergamous way, like they're better than me because they're smarter than me. So like I don't actually look at somebody being better than me in terms of having more money than me. I look at somebody being better than me in terms of being smarter than me. So I was able to find, you know, a high concentration of smart people at NASA or at a technical university, and I found that that was like really like my type. And you know, I've tried to like date people dumber than me, or at least I don't care. There's nothing wrong with that, but like if I'm going to reproduce with you and have children with you, I'm really, or even just be around you day in, day out and have to listen to you talk to me. No. It's like also, I think like dating somebody in the medical field would be really hard because, you know, people come home, they want to talk about their day, and medical stuff literally like makes my stomach turn. Like my one best friend is a nurse, and like that is hard enough, like, because sometimes she's explaining stuff and she usually doesn't explain in too much detail, so it's fine. But yeah, it's just like, you know, I'm just saying like I have tried to deviate away from like what I know that I really like, and it just like is a dumb idea. So yeah, anyway, that's cool. I learned that I have a type and that deviating from the type is stupid, and if I want it, I'd rather be alone than deviate from the type. That's just like an honest feeling. Um but I'd say the other thing that I've learned is that you can't fix other people. Like, you know, you may try to date somebody, like, you can't help people who won't help themselves or don't want to help themselves. And so you may date somebody thinking, like, you can make them happy. Well, that's just going to be temporary because eventually they're going to settle back into their baseline when all the weird, like, hormones of first getting into a relationship in the honeymoon phase, like, wears off. That's why I think breaking up in the middle of the honeymoon phase is, like, so hard. Like, the one time that happened to me, it's like my heart literally broke and it was, like, painful and I couldn't eat and blah, blah, blah. And, like, I can't even believe I went through that. Like, it was crazy. Retrospectively, I don't know what. It's like that whole thing went down the way it needed to go down, and I like don't really have regrets about that either, honestly, because I still had some cool experiences. So whatever. Yeah, but I don't know. I think it's important to also like talk about your goals for the future very early on. Like nobody really wants to do that. People want to casually date, and that's cool, but like to me that's a waste of my time. Like I enjoy building relationships and keeping relationships, and to me, like serial dating is just like stupid and annoying. And not gonna lie, I've had that experience before, but like, um, yeah, the problem is people just like me a lot, and I get a lot of offers, and sometimes I get offers that I actually kind of like and I'm curious about, and then I'll like entertain them, and then the worst is when you realize, I hate when I realize I don't like the person, and then I have to be like, sorry, no, and then they get butthurt about it, like that. I hate that one. So I just kind of really like avoid people a lot because like men have egos. This is the other stupid annoying thing about men. It's like, get over yourself. I'm sorry, but all of you 92% of people watching this, it's like, unfortunately or fortunately, we are now living in an era where women like pretty much are kind of like finally getting to be equal. Good for me, bad for you. Yeah, and the reason I said like this 91% was high is it used to be 88%, and I don't know how having the baby magically made me more appealing to men. Tell me why, please. It makes no sense. It means I'm emotionally taken by my child. But anyway, as I was saying, yeah, so I'm not trying to make anybody but her, and the worst is really like when you're friends with somebody and you know they like you, but like I can't really like address that because it's gonna make it weird and the guy's gonna get all butthurt, and it's just like I don't have the emotional bandwidth for this because I sometimes have the emotional bandwidth of like an ant or something. I don't know, or a potato. Those don't even exist. Yeah, whatever. Mentally, I mean. Okay, so anyway, yeah, I think that like it's just that if it's the right relationship, it should feel easy. It should feel refreshing. It should feel like coming home and taking your shoes off and laying down in bed and going to sleep and just like relaxing until the next day. It shouldn't feel like bracing for constant conflict and like rehashing old wounds and like bringing up all your childhood trauma. It's really funny because I didn't really understand the way in which your childhood affects you until like my one roommate told me that, and I was like, oh really? And it's like, yeah, there are certain patterns that are kind of like set in your brain and there's kind of nothing you can do about it. And it's like, I I'd say, like, pretty much everybody I dated was, like, traumatized in some way. I mean, look, we all are. But, like, they were, like, kind of extreme situations. Maybe it was, like, divorce. Maybe it was, like, a family member being away for a while. Maybe it was, like, somebody being really controlling. Maybe it was, like, another family member having, like, unrealistically high expectations for this person. And, like, some of this stuff I could, like, relate to. But in the end, it's like, I think one of the issues with relationships is people really look to a partner to kind of like emotionally regulate them. It's like, unfortunately, your best bet is like emotionally regulating yourself, because the better you can emotionally regulate yourself, like the better of a partner you're going to be, and the more your relationship is going to have like fewer problems that are just honestly kind of stupid and can be avoided. And you know, this is kind of one of the things that sometimes I get frustrated with having like male friends, especially the male friends who don't have girlfriends, is it's like I am doing a lot of like emotional labor for these guys, and it's like I don't really feel like it. Sorry. Like, and then I feel like this is one of the reasons why I've been getting kind of, I don't want to say like distant from people, but it's just like I don't know, I just like, I don't feel like dealing with this. I think it also just like makes me tired. I'm like trying to protect my energy, blah blah blah, whatever. You know, so it's like if I'm not really interested in dealing with it, I kind of do this. Like, I like talking business. I'm American. I'm like comfortable with that, you know? Yeah, so I don't know. The point is, what have I learned? I think the biggest thing that I've learned is like you need to relinquish control in life. Like, you're not in control of anything. You're not in control. You could have a wonderful, happy, peaceful marriage, and the next day one or the other person could like walk away and never come back, and you have no idea why. Like, that kind of stuff happens, and it's crazy, and you like trust somebody and then you're betrayed, and it's like people will surprise you. I said this already, in both wonderful and terrible ways. And like that is especially how I feel about the father of my child. All this nonsense in the last 2 years. It's like I'm surprised both for better and for worse. And it's like, it is what it is. Like, you know, loving somebody is a risk when it's not your family, you know, it's not like that blood connection kind of, you're trying to build it, but like, and you know, having that child is always kind of gonna like, you know, bond you to that person. Disgusting. It's true though. Especially when your child looks like their father. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's just like you can't control anything. So it's like you can't control whether you're going to meet somebody who's going to like you. You can't even like control. So I wish I could control who I was attracted to, but I can't. And it's like I meet a lot of people, I like their personality, we get along, but like I am not attracted to them, so therefore like this is not going to happen. So that sucks too. And it's like, again, I'd rather be alone than just be with somebody I don't like. So I think it's like, you know, watching out for red flags, blah, blah, blah. But I think the biggest takeaway at this point that I've had is just like, the more you work on yourself, the easier you will have being in any sort of semi-functional relationship. That's really the biggest thing that I can think of. So I'd say, like, I guess my general advice is, like, if you're somebody who is like, okay, why can't I get into a relationship? Why is this so hard for me? It's like, honestly, it's like, work on emotional regulation. I don't care if you got to do yoga, if you need to exercise, if you need to sleep more, if you need to go on medication. That's all, like, however you're going to do that is good. You can usually tell if you're emotionally regulated or not based on, like, how much the people who are very close in your life trigger you. If you start feeling less triggered, then so you're doing something right. Then you can go to therapy, and then you can kind of, like, talk about, like, why is it hard for me to be in a relationship? What is missing? Again, for me at this point, it's just like kind of not gravitating towards people who are very critical of me, because that's going to diminish my self-worth, and that's going to make the relationship, it's going to make the relationship laborious. And that's the biggest thing that I feel like when I am going to meet somebody that I want to talk to, is like the conversation doesn't feel laborious. I feel like the person I enjoyed talking to the most was definitely father of my child before he went AWOL. Why? Because sometimes it feels like I'm talking to like a Chat GPT version of myself. It's like I had the one friend who like I was like talking to her, was like reading Wikipedia. Like I would learn so much. It felt like I was talking to myself, but like an enhanced version of myself with more information. So it was like really interesting. I don't know. I guess it's maybe how people feel when they listen to my channel, except there's actually some interaction there. So I think just accepting that like you're out of control. You can try to like manifest stuff. You can try to like put out the energy. But, like, at the end of the day, it's, like, it's all a crapshoot. Like, you don't really know if it's going to work or if it's not going to work. You can have regrets. You cannot have regrets. Like, do I really regret any of my relationships? I wish, like, I had slowed things down with, like, my last relationship. But again, it was a stupid housing thing, bane of my existence. But other than that, like, I think I learned things from all my relationships. I think I learned that, like, I don't want to be with somebody who's constantly criticizing me or like is super reactive and emotionally dysregulated and somebody I feel like I have to save. Like, you need to go work on all that stuff yourself. Like, that is not my problem. And you know, I don't mind if somebody's willing to work on it, but like, I'm not like gonna work on it for you because like I have my hands full. I have a child. This is why I keep saying I already have one child. I'm not trying to date a second man child. So I don't know. I think it's like having enough self respect so that you're not getting into these toxic relationships. Like, you should feel like baseline normal okay. It shouldn't be these extreme highs and lows. If it is, it's toxic, and I want you to keep in mind that a toxic relationship is as bad for your brain as like illicit substances. So, you know, you do what you want. You do you, man. But I just know that I'm at a point, especially with having a child, like, I need to stay stable. I want to set a good relationship for my child. I don't want my child to go through toxic relationships as an adult. And this is like when my brother says change starts today. So, yeah, essentially the change that is starting is I'm like, you know, just looking for something that's like, I like them, they like me, I respect them and admire them, vice versa, and there's not a lot of drama, and you're able to, like, solve conflicts well. Actually, this is a lot of what's going on right now with me doing the startup is, like, you know, I'm working with a business partner. We're not always going to agree on things, but how do we have conflict resolution? And, like, kind of an experience like this is really helping me. Granted, not at all the same thing, right? But like certain things, like, okay, like, I want to live in a house, or I want to live in an apartment, you want to live in a house, like, how are we going to, like, financially decide this together? Like, what's reasonable? Like, what about childcare? I don't know, like, all this stuff, like, you have to have ideas for. Or what about elder care when our parents are older? Are we going to move to one or the other of the family? Like, all this stuff that, like, you kind of need to talk about. And it's like, you know, people don't want to talk about that kind of stuff, and it's like, to me, that's just like a waste of time. So I don't know. I'm not saying you have to, like, speed run things and be like, you know, really trying to just. I get that, like, as you get older, you just have less time. I have less time. I have less emotional bandwidth. So for me, it's like a lot. But I don't know. Well, hopefully this was interesting. This was like a very long video and blah. So I might take some time to make another video, especially because, you know, it's the weekend and I'm tired and all that, and my back hurts. All right. Well, that's everything. And until next time, bye.